The sunrise is jealous of this man's smile. Of course. Did you expect anything less from Marcelo the Magnificent? I like Marcelo. I hope nothing bad happens to him. I like him a lot. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Espoir David. Today I want to play a game that was recommended to me called Crimson Hydrangea. My name is Espoir. It means hope in French, and I like these pretty flowers that I can never pronounce the name of. As the crisp autumn air swept through St. Anne's, you felt as though you could finally breathe again. It had been nearly 7 months since you moved to this small island, located just off the northeast coast. You were originally hired on as a seasonal employee for the small local bookstore, and having no better options, decided to stay on for the winter months. The pay was decent, your manager was nice enough. However, you are now one of 3 employees on a skeleton crew. A drastic change considering there had been about 15 of you during the summer months. Ooh, went from 15 to 3? Ah, jeez. This would be one of those memes of how I walk into work 15 minutes late knowing that I do the job of 10 different people. You had originally gotten the job through a family friend who lived on the island, Lisa. She was a famous painter and had moved out to the island nearly 2 decades ago. She was good friends with the bookstore owner and suggested that you apply when you found yourself between jobs at the beginning of the year. Apparently, the owner had just gone through a nasty divorce and wanted a fresh start on the island, and that fresh start included opening up a bookstore within a month's time. Right before the tourist season began, and right around the time when you first arrived on the island, the first month was a blur. Painting, setting up shelves, stocking inventory, making signs. The list could go on and on. However, despite being the busiest you had ever been, it was a great distraction from your less than ideal situation at the time. Not unlike the owner, you had also just gone through a terrible breakup that left you without a job or a safe place to live. It was during that time Lisa reached out, undoubtedly having overheard your pitiful plight from your mother, and offered you salvation through this opportunity. Fortunately, she also had a guest house that she was renting out. It was small, but so was your old apartment. It also had 2 bedrooms, one of which she was already renting out. Thankfully, your roommate turned out to be pretty cool. However, the thought of an unknown roommate did give you pause at first. If you were being completely honest, the idea of packing up and living on an island gave you pause. What if this was a huge mistake? What if everyone there hated you? What if you hated living there? Worst of all, what if your ex was right about you, that you didn't deserve to be happy? Eventually, you decided to cast those lingering doubts aside and just go for it. Worst case scenario, you would have spent the summer on a beautiful island and would return to your parents' home with your tail between your legs and look for a job elsewhere. Besides, if you really thought about it, you were lucky to even have this opportunity. The island, St. Anne's, was an incredibly popular tourist spot during the summer, famous for their seafood, idyllic landscapes, and architecture from a bygone era. Its popularity was widely accepted and tightly embraced by the higher echelons of society. It was near impossible to afford living on St. Anne's year-round, much less own one of its gorgeous homes. Ferry fuel prices were skyrocketing, and most locals resorted to growing their own food during the summer months. Of course, there were a few wealthy families who lived on the island who didn't have to go through the extra trouble, not that they had anything to do with you. Now that summer had come to a close and most of the tourists had returned to the mainland, you found your morning walks all the more enjoyable. Your place was about a 15-minute walk from downtown and where the bookstore was located. The houses lining the street were gorgeous two-story colonials with beautifully maintained yards and white picket fences. They were something that you would see in a movie. One of your favorite houses had gorgeous overgrown red hydrangeas that filled the yard and climbed over the fence and nearly spilled into the sidewalk. There were various other colors and flowers that decorated the yard. However, they were easily overlooked in favor of the brilliant scarlet ones that contrasted nicely against the overcast skyline. Admiring the flowers, you couldn't help but smile as the gentle floral scent filled your senses as you continued walking down the sidewalk. You were half tempted to reach out and touch one, but ultimately held yourself back. You'd seen just how vicious some of these rich homeowners could become when it came to tourists plucking their flowers for little souvenirs. Not that you could really blame them. After all, if you woke up one day and found the flower bed you tenderly cared for the past few months picked over by a bunch of strangers, you'd be pretty ticked too. Before you knew it, you found yourself standing in front of the bookstore's rear entrance. You swiftly pulled out your keys, unlocked the door, and entered into a tiny little break room that contained a thrifted couch, some refurbished gym lockers, coffee table, and mini-fridge that would store employees' lunches. Fluff, you forgot your lunch. Again. Mentally cursing yourself, you walked towards your locker and pulled out your apron and name tag. You were already wearing your yellow uniform sweatshirt and white pants, so you had a few minutes to kill before your shift started. What to do to kill time? Disassociate on the couch. Let's see, pull out my phone, dissociate on the couch, check in with the owner. I kinda want to talk to the owner. Who's the owner? Since you were a few minutes early, it wouldn't hurt to check in with the owner. She seemed a bit off her usual game yesterday and, well, you were worried. If you thought you threw yourself into work when you first arrived, your efforts paled in comparison to hers. She hadn't taken a single day off since the bookstore opened, and was usually the first one in, and would rarely leave before closing. You knocked on the office door, only to hear rustling before a tired voice beckoned you inside. Come in. Opening the door, you revealed an even smaller room that barely fit the computer desk and cabinets that you had helped her haul in all those months ago. Espoir. Good morning. She glanced at her computer screen before her tired green eyes shifted back towards yours. 15 minutes early. Is everything okay? Her voice betrayed the exhaustion and trepidation your early appearance filled her with. Good morning. Yeah, I thought I'd check in and see if you needed help with anything before I started my shift. When met with a blank stare, you continued, slowly starting to question your decision to offer a helping hand. Uh-oh. I noticed you seemed a bit off yesterday. I figured it wouldn't hurt to check in and see if you needed a little extra help. Something seemed to click behind the owner's eyes as a faint smile made its way onto her lips and her tired gaze. That's really sweet, Espoir. Thanks for offering, but I'll be okay. I usually get allergies during this time of year, and it's hitting me a bit harder than usual. Same. I should be fine once the medicine kicks in. She explained as she gestured towards a pill bottle on the desk before standing up from her chair. She pushed her soft brown hair back behind her shoulder as she picked up her work tablet that was on her desk. All right. Just let me know if you need anything, okay? You took a few steps back, giving her some space so she could step out of the tiny room. Will do. And the same goes for you. Let me know if you need anything, okay? I might be your boss, but I still owe you for all your hard work these past few months. She said with a gentle smile as she gently patted your shoulder before passing by you and entered the main break room as you trailed after her. Thankfully, now that summer's over, things should be a bit slower. We have a handful of pickup orders today, but we should finish sorting through them before noon. We're in good shape for the weekend, she stated as she flipped through a small tablet she had brought with her. The heavy-duty case was a warm cyan and had a cute little crooked white seal sticker on the back. I'll take care of checking over our inventory and assembling the pickup orders. You can mind the front and help any customers that come in. Oh, and don't forget to update this week's employee recs. Ah, yes, the weekly employee recommendations. It started about 2 weeks after the bookstore opened, and while it was a great way to help the locals, especially the older and long-winded ones, pick a book that might have otherwise been overlooked. That reminds me, I need to visit my local library some more. It was honestly a little difficult to stay on top of. After all, it's not like you had time to read a new book every week. That, and it's not like you could recommend some of the spicier books you like to read to good old Puritan Meredith down the street, who was celebrating her 87th birthday in 2 weeks now. Hey, I think Miss Meredith might appreciate that. Well, technically you could, but it probably wouldn't go over very well. Fortunately, within the first few weeks of arriving, you had managed to find a prolific author who you not only genuinely enjoyed the works of, but also just so happened to live on St. Anne's. Morgan Brattle truly was an awe-inspiring author. Their writing was incredible. The characters were always so complex and interesting, and the storylines were on an entirely other level. While they dabbed in a few different genres, the main one they seemed to specialize in were murder mysteries. However, rather than writing about another detective solving someone else's murder, the interesting twist with their books was that they were typically told from the viewpoint of the murderers. I wonder if that is a bit of foreshadowing. They currently had an ongoing series that had 7 books completed thus far, all with which were absolute bangers. Look, it's not like you actually thought murdering people was okay or secretly suffered from hybristophilia. You simply appreciated how well written these books were, and given the very specific set of circumstances in the novels, you can kind of understand why the murderers did what they did. A young daughter accidentally killing their abusive father and framing her babysitter, or a mother's revenge gone wrong on her child's bullies. They were all really interesting storylines. Besides, they were fictional characters. It's not like anyone was actually killed. That's foreshadowing, isn't it? Espoir? Immediately, you snapped back to reality and nodded. Oh yes, I wasn't daydreaming about fictional murderers. Yeah, sorry. I was thinking about which book I wanted to recommend, you admitted with a sheepish smile, only for her to let out a small chuckle. What, are you actually going to choose something that wasn't written by Morgan Brattle? She teased as she lowered her tablet. Hey, I can't help it if I just really like their writing, you defended, feeling heat rise to your cheeks. Another chuckle passed her lips as she shook her head. I'm just teasing, Espoir. You can choose whatever book you want. Though I'm sure Morgan Brattle must be flattered considering you've been recommending their works ever since we started putting them up on display. Who knows how many times they've walked by and seen it through the windows. Oh no, am I going to meet Morgan Brattle and get completely flabbergasted? Okay, I get it. I'll consider looking at other authors next week. Can I go now? You begrudgingly stated, just trying to end this conversation and get started on your workday. Of course. I'll be in the back room if you need me. It seemed as though your little interaction put a little pep in her step. Aww. Despite the teasing from earlier, you knew that ultimately Rita meant well. After all, you both arrived on the island under similar circumstances and had formed a friendship of sorts over the past few months. All it took was one fluffed-up text from our ex during work hours, and the two of you spent the rest of the evening in the break room, trading horror stories over drinks and pizza. Her treat. Now that work was slowing down, perhaps you two would be able to do it again sometime. Maybe. Why does that say BDSM over there? Miss Meredith ain't gonna like it. The main area of the bookstore itself was a decent size. Beautifully curated bookshelves lined the walls, only broken up by hanging plants and colorful and sea-themed artwork from local artists. Was it a local artist who put BDSM over there? I can't stop looking at it. It was a really cute and cozy space, only made cozier by the little reading nook located near the front entrance that was usually occupied by small children during the Tuesday read-alongs, or the locals waiting for the rain to pass before making the trek back to their respective homes. The children's reading nook? You mean over there? Where it says BDSM? I don't know, maybe it stands for something else, like... Beautiful days send marshmallows.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
In one of the cozy thrifted couches was the infamous employee recommendation display that you had gotten so much slack for this morning. Resisting the urge to roll your eyes, you begrudgingly walked over to update the display, replacing Morgan Brattle's 6th installment with the 7th, which just so happened to have been less than a week ago. While it was difficult to consistently read a book per week, you practically devoured his 537-page turner over the span of 2 days. Granted, you lost some sleep in the process, but you couldn't help yourself. This had to have been their greatest work yet. Not only was the overall writing and pacing on point, but you couldn't help but deeply relate to the main protagonists who resembled you in more ways than one. They were new to town, worked at a bookstore, and, oddly enough, they resembled you physically as well. Sure do hope Morgan Brattle's books don't start getting a little bit more personal. You wondered if, perhaps the owner was right. What if the author had taken notice of you? If that is the case, I will scream so loud and totally lose my marbles. After all, they supposedly lived on the island, and while this certainly wasn't the only bookstore in the area, it's not like it's unheard of for an author to check out a local bookstore, especially if it had just opened up. What if they walked by and saw their book on the shelf underneath your little name tag? What if they came inside to check out the store and spotted you at the register? What if you unwittingly checked them out and gushed about them to their face? Oh God, please don't let that be the case. The thought of that was enough to make you want to crawl into the break room and never come back out. I mean, same, absolutely. I get all flustered when the developers of some of these games make a comment in my comment section. Grabbing the 6th book in the series, you swiftly put it back into its rightful place on the shelf before unlocking the front door and flipping over the open sign. You would usually leave the door open to get some fresh air, but considering that it was starting to get colder and the owner was feeling under the weather, you figured it was best if you kept it closed for the time being. The first half of your morning was pretty slow, with only a handful of customers wandering in, looking for a gift or picking up one of those pre-orders you had prepped the day before. Noticing one of the pillows in the reading nook on the floor, you let out a small sigh and got up to fix it. However, as you crossed the main entryway, you nearly slammed into the door that abruptly swung open right then and there. Ow! You yelped in surprise as you stumbled backwards and managed to catch yourself from falling against the counter. Fortunately, your quick reflexes saved you from a world of pain. Sorry that you almost killed me. Yeah, I probably would apologize. Sorry for almost getting myself killed. A tall, blond man stepped inside, glancing over towards you in slight surprise, as if he hadn't expected the door to swing out as far as it did. Oh, alright, I'll give you that. I was about to say that the door is most likely transparent. I'm so sorry. The wind blew the door open. Are you okay? He questioned, concern etched into his handsome features as he carefully shut the door behind him and stepped towards you. He was careful to leave enough space between the two of you, but certainly closer than most strangers would dare come. You slammed the door on my shoulder. I think I need compensation. No. I'm fine, just a little startled. Just saw my life flashing before my eyes. His expression immediately softened, betraying his intense relief. Oh, thank God. I don't know what I'd do if I hurt you. Do I know you, sir? Okay. While it was nice he seemed so concerned about you, wasn't he overacting just a little? Perhaps you just weren't used to strangers being concerned for your well-being, especially strangers who looked like him. Now that you had a chance to get a better look at the tall blonde, you could see just how conventionally attractive he was. He was the quintessential rich St. Anne's Islander. Everything about him was well-groomed, from his silky blonde hair styled in a cute swoop, to his dimpled saccharine smile that revealed perfectly straight and white teeth, accented by a sharp and chiseled jawline. He's too perfect. I'm suspicious of this person. His broad shoulders and tapered waist were covered by an expensive beige designer 3/4 zip fleece. You had seen the wealthier locals sporting, his tapered waist that led to his long, lean legs covered by perfectly tailored brown pants. Heck, even his fingernails were perfectly cut, cleaned, and maintained. Sir, I feel like I'm going to be charged a tax for just looking at you. He was perfection incarnate, or at least he was by St. Anne's standards. Handsome, blonde-haired, gray-eyed, and impeccably dressed, he stood out like a sore thumb. There was no way you could have missed him, even if he had ever visited the store during your shift. Though, if you were going off of appearances alone, he seemed to be the type to prefer partying on Daddy's yacht with a girl on each arm. Like what you see? He smirked confidently, clearly having noticed your prolonged stare. I'm just listing off how much everything you're wearing probably costs. Crap. What? No, she lied. What if I do, buddy? Aw. He let out an amused chuckle, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I have to admit, the feeling's mutual, gorgeous. Whoa, gorgeous? Okay, either he was a player, or he was really trying to butter you up for some reason. Yeah, my thoughts exactly, me. Of course, that wasn't to say you weren't attractive, just that you had never been referred to as such in the middle of your shift, while you were still in uniform. Despite yourself, you feel your cheeks grow warm upon hearing his flattering words. Can I help you with something today, sir? Wanting to change the subject, you default into your customer service role. The faster you dealt with him, the faster he could leave and you could calm your stupidly excited heart rate. You certainly may. You see, I've been wanting to get back into reading for a while now, and I was hoping you could help me. I have no real preference when it comes to genre, if that helps. He stated with a slightly embarrassed little smile, his clear gray eyes fixed on yours. Perhaps your first impressions on him were wrong, or at least partially anyway. Considering the fact that you just updated the employee recs, you figured you might as well go ahead and recommend your choice. After all, it was still fresh in your mind, and since he didn't seem to have a preference, it was probably a good enough choice. Well, if I had to recommend any book, I would actually recommend this one. It's called The Seventh Touch of Corruption. It's technically the 7th installment, but each of these books can stand alone. Oh, that's neat. I like that. That's neat. You don't end up with books 1, 5, and 8. You state as you walk over to the main display and grab one of the hardcover books before handing it to him. Granted, there were also paperback versions of this book further in the store. However, he looked as though he could afford a slightly pricier hardcover book. That, and you like the art on this cover more than the paperback version. Despite his best attempts at biting back a smile, his eyes betrayed his excitement as he nonchalantly grabbed the book, his long, slender fingers gently brushing across yours. He glanced at the book for a brief second, before immediately looking into your eyes once more. "Tell me, is this your favorite book?" Catching himself in his slightly rushed and excited tone, he tried to dial it back a bit and clarified. "I mean, it must be, right? Why else would you immediately recommend this book without even taking a moment to think about it?" Was he sweating just then? That's a fair question, or at least you thought it was. It's not like he knew you were a super fan of this author. "Well, it actually came out recently, and I kinda binge read it," you admitted sheepishly as you glanced over the pillow that had been long forgotten. "Oh yeah, the whole reason I moved over there." You moved over to pick it up and place it on the couch, rattling off the various reasons as to why you enjoyed it. As a result, you completely missed the smug expression that crossed the stranger's face. The author's writing is also descriptive, but not too descriptive that it bogs everything down. The overall pacing is great, all of the characters are interesting and well thought out, and the storyline is pretty gripping. Not to mention the twist at the end was really well written. After I finished reading it, I was able to see the amazing and subtle foreshadowing that was sprinkled throughout. Foreshadowing? You were careful not to spoil anything for him just in case he did, in fact, end up getting the book. Once the pillows were back in their proper place, you grabbed a few books that had been carelessly left on the small coffee table and moved to return to the counter. "What about the main characters? What did you think about them?" You paused as you glanced over at him once more. That was an oddly specific question. Perhaps he was interested in getting the book. It was kind of strange to think that this man who was so far outside your usual social circle was hanging off of your every word. Granted, you were just talking about books, but still, it was surreal, but incredibly flattering to say the least. I personally really enjoyed the main character. They're hardworking, always trying to do their best, and honest. They go through a lot in the book, and they persevere despite all odds. I find them really well written and relatable. You answer, not really wanting to go into too much detail about how you really relate to the character. "They're just like me, for real. I hope they're not based on me." Your answer seemed to have satisfied his curiosity, as he flashed you another brilliant smile. "That sounds promising. Incredibly promising, in fact. In that case, I would love to get this book if you'll do me the honors," he said with a dazzling smile as he followed you to the counter. His mood was noticeably lighter. It was hard to tell since you didn't really know him, but at least he seemed happy and was buying the hardcover version. Score one for you and Morgan. Your mind drifted towards the author, debating on whether or not you actually had met them during your time here before you finished ringing him up and bagging his book with a 20% off coupon. "Thank you for shopping at Bound to Please." Bound to Please, that's a good one. "We hope to see you again, sir."
"Garrett."
"Excuse me?" He chuckled and repeated himself.
"Garrett. My name is Garret Belmont."
"Are you a vampire hunter? Is your bloodline cursed to track down Dracula every 100 years?
"I thought I should introduce myself since I'm sure we'll be seeing each other a bit more often from now on,"
he explained as he lifted up his reusable tote that had the store's logo plastered on the front. "Right. He said he wanted to get back into reading again. Well, we'll see how long that lasts. After all, it wasn't the first time a customer declared their intentions to come back and was never heard from again." "What, you mean me?" "I should read some more." "Of course. Thank you for stopping by, Garrett. Flirt.
"Thank you, Espoir. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day as well. See you later, gorgeous,"
he said with a flirtatious smile as he gave you a final wave before exiting the store. The fact that he knew your name didn't faze you, After all, you were wearing your name tag, and it's not like this was the first time a random customer called you by name. Overall, he seemed like a nice enough guy. Maybe a little pushy, but nice enough. Wait, did he really just call you gorgeous? Rita, you didn't see that. You didn't see me flirting with a super hot rich man. Hey, Espoir, I just finished the pickups. Before you had a chance to think any further on the interaction from earlier, Rita stepped into the main section of the bookstore. You can go on your lunch break while I man the front. She was still looking a little worse for wear, but who are you to turn down a lunch break? Sounds good. I'll be back in an hour or so. See ya, you say as you start untying your apron uniform and head to the break room to hang it up before heading out to lunch. Where do you go? Let's see, a local bakery or home? I kind of like the idea of a local bakery. I wish I had a local bakery. Just down the street was a cute little local bakery that had become a regular staple in your life. The atmosphere was relaxing, the food was delicious, and the pricing was pretty reasonable compared to other bakeries in the area. Rolling tides. Cute. It also helped that it was practically a 3-minute walk from the bookstore, if that. Thankfully, it didn't look too busy at the moment. The lunch rush had just passed, and aside from a few people sitting down near the windows and enjoying their meals, it was pretty empty. The chiming of the bells immediately alerted the person behind the counter as you stepped inside. Hello, Marcelo.
Welcome to Espoir. There you are. I was hoping you'd show up again.
A warm male voice greeted you as you approached the counter. Hey, Marcelo, or you know me, I just can't stay away. I like being friendly. He let out a warm laugh.
Hey, I can't blame you. I mean, have you seen me? My buns bring all the customers in.
Oh, Marcelo.
Especially the toasty sesame ones,
he said with a playful little wink. You know what you did. You know what you said. You roll your eyes with a chuckle. It was nice to see that he was still the same old playful Marcelo. From the moment you first met him, there was something about Marcelo that made you feel warm and safe. I just met the guy. I already feel warm and safe. I feel like he's gonna introduce me to his family for dinner or something. We're not even a thing. He's just cool like that. Despite his playfulness and lighthearted banter, something about him gave off reliable Big Brother vibes. Yeah. I've only met you for 0.5 seconds, Marcelo, and I like you. Hope nothing bad happens to you. Perhaps it was because he usually offered to feed you whenever you were around. Speaking of which... So, what's the special today? You question as you glance towards the sign in the back that was partially obscured by Marcelo's broad and muscular shoulders. How nice of you to notice, main character. As silly and playful as he was, you couldn't deny that he was built like a brick house. We finally got a fresh shipment of condensed milk in stock, so I've been going a little wild testing out new recipes. And if you're down to try something new, I'll be willing to let you be my first taste tester. He grinned, very clearly confident about his little experiment. Man, I want to go to a local bakery. Of course, if you're too scared to expand your horizons, the soup of the day is clam chowder, and we have a surprisingly delicious barbecue seitan sandwich. Clam chowder and barbecue seitan sandwich? I don't even know what a barbecue seitan sandwich is, but it sounds delicious. He added, wanting to let you know what the actual specials were. What will you order? I want to see what you're experimenting on, good sir. I'm feeling a little adventurous today. I'll take your newest creation, whatever it is. Marcelo beamed down at you. Great! Why don't you sit at your usual spot? I'll bring it over to you in a second. Oh, and don't worry, this will be on me, since you're doing me a favor. If you die, I'll know that I shouldn't serve it to customers. he added with a small wink before disappearing in the back. I want to know what he made. Your spot, or at least the spot you often found yourself sitting at, was in the far back corner of the bakery. It was a perfect spot for people watching. It was just far enough that you didn't have to worry about people bumping into you with their bags as they navigated the otherwise small bakery space, while still having a great view of the massive window that overlooked the main street. About 10 minutes or so later, Marcelo arrived at your table with your order in tow. Here's your dulce de leche tres leche. Dulce de leche tres leche? Marcelo, you're going to kill me. You know I'm lactose intolerant. Why would you double the leche? So, you know the tres leches we usually make? Well, I swapped out one of the leches with a homemade dulce de leche. It should give the cake a slightly richer and deeper taste than our usual ones. Now, as I just said, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm going to gobble that cake up. I'll pay for it later. I also added some chopped candied nuts to give it a little extra texture as well, he explained as he placed a surprisingly cute piece of cake before you. Cake for lunch wasn't exactly something you indulged in often. However, the cute presentation and tantalizing smell was far too tempting to pass up. It actually looks pretty good. Stomach will have to be angry with me later. Ouch, no need to sound so surprised, Espoir. It's not like I do this for a living or anything. Sorry, you know what I meant, Marcelo. Lifting up your fork, you carefully cut the piece and took a bite. It was absolutely amazing. The depth the dulce de leche added to the cake was out of this world. Oh, wow. This is really, really delicious. Why isn't this on your menu already? You gushed, looking up at the suddenly bashful-looking Marcelo. Do you mean it, Espoir? You're not just messing with me? He questioned, almost as if he was afraid to actually believe your kind words. No, I'm being serious. It's really good. Look, here, try some. You insisted as you dipped your fork back into the cake and lifted it up towards the 6'3" male. He's tall, you say? Geez, that guy's like an entire 1.5 feet taller than me. I'll need a stepladder to hand the fork to him. He hesitated for a moment before bending down, practically in half, to take a bite off your fork. A faint blush appeared on his caramel features as his lips wrapped around the fork that had been in your mouth moments prior. Once the cake was fully... It's like we're anime indirectly kissing. Once the cake was safely in his mouth, he pulled back and stood up straight, chewing on the delectable treat. It is pretty good. I think the salty and sweet candied nuts were just what it needed, he murmured to himself as he covers his mouth with a fist as he continued chewing. See? Told you so. You grinned as you turned your attention back to your sweets. While you focused on eating the rest of it, you missed a pair of dark eyes that turned their attention back towards you, paying particular attention to the way your cute little mouth opened and closed around the dessert he had prepared specifically for you. Oh, Marcelo! I wonder if there's a Marcelo route. After another bite or two, you noticed his lingering gaze and glanced up at him, only to snap him back into reality when you made eye contact. Aww. I'm glad you liked it, Espoir. Let me know if you need anything else, okay? I gotta get back to work, he said, with a tight smile before turning on his heel and heading towards the kitchen again. See ya? You called out after him, confused by his abrupt departure. He usually liked to stick around and chat a bit whenever business was slow. Well, I mean, you two did just indirectly kiss, and then you continued eating off your fork like nothing happened. Perhaps you had been a little too forward offering him a bite off your fork, but it's not like you guys just met either. You've known him for as long as you had been on the island, and had always had a good rapport with him. Besides, he constantly teased you, so it wasn't as if he was all that innocent. Shrugging it off, you decided to enjoy the rest of your meal while watching people pass by on the street nearby. Once you finished your meal, you brought your plates up to the little cart in the corner of the bakery and stopped by the counter. You might not have had to pay for your meal, but you wanted to at least leave a tip behind to show your appreciation. "Thanks again for the meal, Marcelo. Everything was delicious as usual." Marcelo, who had re-emerged from the kitchen shortly before you finished your meal, grinned. The sunrise is jealous of this man's smile." "Of course. Did you expect anything less from Marcelo the Magnificent?" He chuckled as he leaned against the counter towards you. You resisted the urge to roll your eyes as a smile appeared on your lips. No, I guess not. I hope Marcelo the Magnificent has a great rest of his day." Before he had the chance to stop you, you placed a $5 bill in his tip jar and bolted towards the door. It wasn't a lot, but the last time you tried to tip him, he managed to grab the tip jar and hide it from you. So you were left with no other option but to do a sneak attack. "Wait, what? Espoir, come back here," he laughed, realizing too late what you had done. "Darn you, I'll make sure you pay. Wait, no, I'll make sure you don't pay next time," he called out from behind the counter, laughing good-naturedly at the entire situation. "I like Marcelo. I hope nothing bad happens to him. I like him a lot. Fat chance, see you later, Marcelo," you called out with a grin as you slipped past a few customers who decided to enter the bakery right as you were leaving. The walk back to the bookstore was quick, and by the time you returned, it had nearly been an hour since you left. Aww. When you return finally to the bookstore, you're shocked to find a worn-out-looking Rita leaning against the counter. "What's the matter, baby? You look like poo-poo." She stared at you with an unamused expression, clearly not pleased by your comment. However, it's not like she could outright deny it. Not only did she look like crap, she probably felt like it too. "Rita, do you need to go home?" "Nice to see you too," she answered dryly as she took a few moments to gather her strength before pushing herself off of the counter. "I'll be in the office if you need me. Make sure to sweep the floors when it's empty. The wind's been blowing in more sand than usual," she ordered before heading back, clearly in a crap-poor mood after your comment. "What? I'm just being honest. Why you booing me? I'm right. You do look like crap." "Man, maybe you should have been a little nicer. At least then she wouldn't have forced you to sweep the floors. Oh well, it's not like there was much else to do for the rest of the day." "Hey, I was going to sweep the floors anyway. I'm about that clean in life." While you had been out at lunch, it seemed as though most of the pickup orders had been, well, picked up while you were out. The rest of the afternoon went by relatively uneventfully, and before you knew it, it was closing time. You went through the usual routine of straightening everything out before dutifully locking the front door. Just as you were flipping over the close sign, Rita re-entered the main area, looking a little better now that she, presumptuously, got a bit of rest in the back room. All right. "Great work today, Espoir." It had become a bit of a routine to hear her say that at the end of a workday. Granted, it wasn't as if your job had you doing anything particularly complex, but it was nice being complimented, even if you were doing the bare minimum. "I can finish up here. Why don't you just head home?" she suggested as she slipped behind the counter, planning on going over the sales for that day. Hey, if she was going to let you go home early, it's not like you were going to argue. Granted, you did feel a little guilty for having her take over some of your duties while she was sick. Well, she couldn't have been feeling that sick if she felt up to dealing with math. Besides, she could always get through in half the time it took you. So you would probably just slow her down and make it take even longer before she could finally head upstairs and crawl into bed. Or at least that's how you rationalized it in your head. "Sounds good. See you on Friday, Rita," you said with a small nod, only to be met with a strained smile and nod before she went back to counting the cash. Not one to linger after a long day's work, you slip into the back room, hung up your apron and name tag, grab your bag, and head back home. The sun had just finished setting, so while the sky had a little bit of light out, your main light source was from the street lamps overhead. If you were being completely honest, you enjoyed how empty the residential streets were on your walk home. It was a huge contrast from that summer, where you could barely walk 2 feet without bumping into a random tourist gawking at God knows what. Maybe these super awesome crimson hydrangeas. At least now you had a moment to think and reflect on how you found yourself at St. Anne's. God, who would have thought that breaking up from your ex of 3 years would have landed you on one of the hottest vacation spots around? As great as things were now, you still couldn't help but feel a sting whenever you thought of them. The breakup was a painful one, and while you had done your best to throw yourself into your work and your new life on the island, it didn't erase the emotional damage your breakup had done to your psyche. At least you had a totally free night ahead of you. Do I? What were you planning? See, watch your favorite movie, game the night away, binge read a new book that just came in, spa night and head to bed early, I kinda like that one, or have a little fun with the new toy you just brought. The new toy, I know exactly what you're thinking about. But actually, spa night and head to bed early sounds really nice. But then again, gaming the night away. Ooh, what's 8 more hours of Pal World? Yeah. Oh, treat myself with a nice bubble bath or play Pal World for 5 to 8 hours. Pal World it is! Man, it was a good thing you had tomorrow and the day off. You'd have to make the most of tonight and treat yourself to a self-care night. Whatever you ended up deciding on, it put a pep in your step, and before you knew it, you arrived home. It was... Why are you saying that as if implying that I'm not gonna do the thing that I intend to do? Will I be interrupted somehow? Is someone going to interrupt my gaming and then I have to throw a controller at them? It was dark when you stepped through the front doors, which wasn't unusual since your roommate was pretty big on saving energy, and more specifically, the electric bill. You announced your presence on the off chance that Camilla, your roommate, was in earshot, but after a few moments of silence, it was clear that you were on your own tonight. Oh well, at least you can treat yourself to a nice relaxing self-care night in peace. I hope it's not suspicious that my roommate is not here. Feeling a bit peckish, you opened the fridge to find a plethora of leftovers, both yours, your roommate's, and your forgotten lunch from this morning. Oh yeah. The sight of it sitting innocently in the fridge was enough to dampen your mood. However, at least it meant you didn't have to worry about dinner. Once you finished your meal, you went to toss away the scraps, only to find that the trash can was full. Letting out a groan, knowing full well it was your turn to take out the trash, you bent down and started pulling the bag out of the can, before making your way to the back door at the edge of the kitchen. However, when you moved to unlock the door, you were surprised to see it already unlocked. Wanting to focus on one thing at a time, you quickly walked through and discarded the trash in the bin behind your house before stepping back inside. Turning your attention back to the door, you tried closing and locking it, only to realize that the latch was completely broken. How long had it been messed up? You usually went through the front door, only really using the back door when taking out the trash. Man, you'll have to let Lisa know in the morning. Thankfully, St. Anne's wasn't known for their high crime rate. If anything, it was probably one of the safest places you'd ever lived. It should be fine if you left it as is, until Lisa could get someone to fix it. So you mean you're just gonna leave your back door unlocked? What do you do? Yeah, put a chair in front in an attempt to jam it. You silly pony. St. Anne's might have been one of the safest places you've ever lived, but that didn't mean you were about to risk getting robbed blind. Or, I don't know, kidnapped. I mean, come on, main character, you read the warnings for this game. Grabbing one of the dining chairs, you swiftly brought it over towards the door and propped it up against the handle. It might have been a janky solution, but it would do for now. It's not like you had 2x4s just laying around the house. Why don't you? Grabbing your phone, you sent a text to your roommate, wherever she was. The last thing you wanted to do was accidentally lock her out, or make her question your sanity when she saw the chair propping the door closed. Once the text was marked as sent, you let out a sigh, deciding to spend the rest of your night doing whatever felt right. 10 hours of Pal World. I'm not even kidding. Eventually, you found yourself in bed, scrolling through your phone as you usually did before bed. Since you had tomorrow off, you didn't feel nearly as guilty staying up later than usual. Yep, Pal World for 5 to 10 hours, and then being on TikTok for like 4 more hours. Just as you felt your lids start growing heavy, you noticed a notification pop up. Your favorite author just posted. Immediately, you click on the banner and are redirected to their profile. Greetings, my beloved readers. It's hard to believe it's been nearly a decade since my first novel was published. Rarely do I ever find myself at a loss for words. As you all know, however, I find it difficult to truly express just how much you all mean to me. As you continued reading, you felt your heart sink. It seemed as though Morgan Brattle... Yeah, Morgan Brattle. I don't know why I read in my head Morgan Brittle. The very author you had come to know and love was taking a hiatus from writing. It seemed as though they needed a break after spending the better part of the past decade focused on cranking out novels. While you understood their reasoning, after all, the last thing you would want would be for them to burn themselves out, you would be lying if you said you weren't at least a little disappointed by this turn of events. You could only hope that it was a temporary hiatus. However, their post was pretty ambiguous as to whether or not they planned on returning in the future. Unable to help yourself, you decided to scroll through the comments that were quickly popping up underneath their post. And they went as well as you could have expected. It was a mixed bag of people cheering them on and supporting their decision, while others were hurling insults and questioning Morgan's passion for writing. Don't do that. That lit a spark in you. After all, Morgan Brattle absolutely deserved a break after working so hard, churning out 13 books over the past decade. Just because they wanted to rest didn't mean that suddenly all of their passion was gone. They were a human after all. If Corey Kenshin wants to take a 9-month break from his videos, let him do that. What do you comment? Yeah. Attack the trolls and haters. No, support for Morgan. You got this, Morgan. You take a breaky break. If there's one thing I always say to people who make games, it's remember to take a break. Like sometimes you just gotta put everything down and just have yourself a nice hot bath and then play 10 hours of Pal World. Don't worry about what others think, Morgan. You've worked hard and deserve to put yourself first for once. Now please rest up and enjoy what life has to offer. Smiley face. You hit send with a smile on your face. Hopefully Morgan sees your message, even if for a split second, and takes your words to heart. You spend longer than you'd like to admit scrolling through the rest of the comments and liking all of the positive ones, as well as their main post after all. You didn't end up staying up too late, and you ended up having a pleasant and restful night's sleep. Aw. Didn't I? Right? What do you mean by these ellipses? You were jolted awake from a dreamless sleep by the sound of your phone buzzing. Who could possibly be calling this early in the morning, especially on your day off? It buzzed for a few more seconds before you groggily started reaching around for your phone in the sheets, only to find that it was above your head on the headboard. That was weird. You didn't remember putting it up there to charge last night. Maybe you were half asleep. Yeah, logically. The buzzing only seemed to grow more and more annoying the longer you took to answer. You unplugged it from the charger and glanced at the caller ID, mildly surprised to find Rita's name plastered across the screen. What could she possibly want on your day off? Swiftly, you pressed the answer button before bringing it to your ear. Hello?
Hey, Espoir.
Holy crap, Rita sounded terrible. How could someone's voice be both wheezy and hoarse at the same time? Aw.
I'm really sorry to call you on your day off. Luna was a no-show, and I really needed someone reliable to watch the store.
She broke out into a pretty nasty coughing fit before continuing.
I'd really just need you to watch the counter, to hand off a couple of pickup orders between 10 and 2. After that, you can close and take off early. I'd do it myself, but I don't want to risk infecting our older customers,
she explained apologetically. Or any customers, Rita. Stay home. Rest well. To be fair, she really sounded miserable. Whether it was because of her cold or the fact that she had to bother you on your day off was anyone's guess. After all, this was the first time she's ever actually reached out for your help when someone no-showed. She usually filled in without a fuss. Taking your pause as a possible rejection, she quickly added,
It'd be a full day's pay for 4 hours.
What do you say? Of course! Sorry, I already had plans today. Lie. No, Rita sounds cool. I'll do that. I still got a bit of people-pleaser in me. I'll take care of it. The overwhelming sense of relief in her voice was clear.
Thanks, Espoir. I owe you big time. I'll make sure everything's unlocked and ready for you so you can just change and head straight to the register. Thanks again, Espoir. You're a lifesaver.
At least you could hear the gratitude in her voice. Don't mention it, Rita. I know you wouldn't ask me to come in unless it was serious.
Yeah, you're right. I really do appreciate it, Espoir.
Her voice sounded a bit softer, almost as if your words weighed heavy on her heart. Of course. I'll be there soon. I just got a shower and I'll be right over.
Right. See you soon, Espoir.
Once you hung up the phone, you let out a tired groan and stretched in bed for a few moments. Even though going back to work wasn't exactly what you envisioned doing on your day off, you'd be lying if you said you didn't feel at least a little good about just how thankful and appreciative Rita was. I might even get head pats. Not to mention the fact that she now owed you a favor in addition to an extra day of pay. The question was, how do you plan on cashing it in? Hey, don't count your rabbits before they hatch. After hopping in the shower and getting ready for the day, you noticed that your roommate was nowhere in sight. That wasn't too surprising, considering she had always been more of a night owl, and for all you knew, she might have had a morning shift at the CBS. It was hard to keep track of her schedule because of how sporadic it had been lately. All right, I guess. It was then you noticed the chair propped up against the door handle from last night. Ah, that's right, the back door was broken. Glancing at your phone, you noticed that you still hadn't heard back from Lisa, but considering the fact that you sent the text pretty late last night and it was still pretty early, you would decide to let it go for now. Seeing the chair innocently propped up against the doorknob, you couldn't help feel a little silly. This was St. Anne's, after all, one of the safest places you'd ever lived. For how long? Besides, it's not like anyone would break in during the day. That, and you could already hear Camilla teasing you for your unfounded paranoia. After a little deliberation, you finally decided to return the chair to its proper place at the table. It'll be fine. I don't think it will be fine, main character. Making sure you locked the front door behind you on your way out, you found yourself on the same path as yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before that one as well. To think that this small coastal island would quickly replace the bustling city life you had once cherished. To be fair, your previous life wasn't all bad, but it wasn't all that great either. You had a nice apartment that you could only afford thanks to splitting the rent with your ex. Your previous job as a project manager at a large corporate office was stressful, but rewarding in its own way. It's a shame it all ended the way it did because of your ex. The fact that they felt justified to come in and... And what? And what? Your entire body cringed at the last memory you had of them, and you quickly shook your head, almost as if you were fighting the memories of that day from fully returning. You refused to think about it, to remember the pain and humiliation they caused you. That was behind you now. You came to St. Anne's for a reason, and that wasn't to think about some jackapple who... What did they do? Oh, hi. It was then that you were met with a pair of familiar gray eyes, peeking at you over the crimson hydrangeas. They said the thing you had been admiring yesterday. It took your mind a moment to register his face, but when you did, his name immediately came to mind. Garret Belmont. Oh yeah, the vampire hunter. The blonde bombshell who visited the bookstore yesterday. What was he doing in that garden with what looked like garden shears? It felt like hours went by as you both stood rooted in your spots, staring at each other in surprise. Fortunately, or unfortunately, Garrett was the first to speak out.
What are you doing here? Isn't it your day off?
Realizing what he just blurted out, a flash of panic crossed his features before he collected himself once more. Lowering the shears, he used his free hand to push his hair back as a confident smile appeared on his lips.
You see, I usually work in the mornings, and I've occasionally seen you walk by when you were on your way to work. I noticed you don't usually work on Thursdays, so...
He trailed off, carefully watching your reaction to his plausible explanation. Now you listen here, pretty face. I've played enough of these yandere visual novels to know that if someone says they just noticed you on your way to work, that's mighty suspicious. You're lucky you're handsome. What do you say? Can you stop keeping tabs on me? It's creepy. No. I don't know. I don't think that sounds very reasonable. Yeah, I understand, but could you at least say hello to me next time? His expression softened into something that could only be interpreted as affection before he nodded his head.
Of course. Anything for you, Espoir. I'm sorry I didn't say hello earlier.
Remembering his initial question regarding your schedule, you decided to answer him, especially since he seemed genuinely curious about it and, well, it's not like it was exactly secret where you worked. I'm just covering for a sick coworker. That wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't entirely the truth either. Even though you were covering for Rita since she was sick, Luna was the one who was originally scheduled to work today. However, you didn't see the need to explain in more detail, especially to Garrett. He nodded thoughtfully, seemingly satisfied with your answer.
I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully your coworker makes a quick recovery.
He paused for a moment, seemingly mulling something over before speaking up once more.
Before I forget, I wanted to let you know that I finished the book you recommended. I really enjoyed it, especially the main character,
he stated, his gaze becoming heated with something you couldn't quite place your finger on. Not that you were trying to, considering how shocked his statement had made you. How on earth did he manage to finish 537 pages over the span of one night? Maybe he has a lot of free time? You had always considered yourself a speedy reader, but despite your best efforts, it took you 2 days to get through it, and he was able to devour it in one night? You couldn't hide the skepticism on your face as you stared at him. There was no way he was telling the truth. He had to be bluffing. Sensing your doubts, he let out a light chuckle before flashing a confident smirk.
What can I say? I'm a fast reader. You can quiz me on it if you like,
he offered, intrigued by what you'd say. As much as you would have loved to quiz him on your favorite book, you unfortunately had to get to work soon, so you'd have to save any potential quizzes for later. I believe you. No, you didn't. Not fully, anyway. As much as I'd love to stay and chat, I have to get to work. Garrett's smile faded a tiny bit.
Ah, right. Sorry. I've held you up a bit too long, haven't I?
He questioned with an apologetic smile.
Perhaps I can stop by later today. I'd love to pick your brain and get another recommendation from you, if that's all right.
Well, it's not like you could tell him not to come to the bookstore. He hadn't done anything to warrant being banned from it, and if anything, it might be another opportunity to score another sale for your favorite author, Morgan Brattle. We're closing early today, so I'll only be working until 2. If you can make it before then, I don't see why not.
In that case, I'll make sure to get there before 2 p.m. I hope you have a wonderful morning, Espoir,
he said with a charming, dimpled smile as he leaned against the fence to watch you leave. See you later, Garrett.
Don't forget to slay some vampires in your free time.
'Cause his last name is Belmont, like Castlevania, and I really, really like Castlevania. Fortunately, the rest of the walk to work was pretty uneventful, albeit a little chillier than yesterday, which made sense given that autumn was quickly approaching. When you stepped through the back door, you found a rather pale and worn-out Rita sitting on the couch waiting for you. God, she really did look terrible. Aw. Espoir, thanks for coming in. She coughed, covering her mouth with the thick fuzzy blanket she had draped over her shoulders. Oh yeah, I forgot, doesn't she live here? Once her coughing fit died down, she offered you an apologetic smile as she stood up from her seat. Sorry, I'm sure you can see why I can't exactly work today. Her voice betrayed her congestion, as if her coughing fit hadn't been obvious enough. You nodded. There was absolutely no denying that she was sick as a dog, and the faster she went back to bed, the better it was for everyone involved. I already moved all of the pickup orders to the shelf behind the counter, so all you have to do is wait until the regulars come in to pick them up. I left the list on the counter, so you can take off once they're all picked up, or 2 p.m. rolls around, whichever comes first, she explained, clearly despite her stuffy tone. Aww. If it was any other week, I would have just told them to come in when we got the rest of the special orders, but with the hurricane coming in, well, you know how antsy they can get, especially if the power goes out like last time. She finished with a small cough, covering her mouth once more. All right, let's get out of here before you get me sick, lady. Rita certainly had a point there. The last time there was a hurricane a few weeks ago, the islanders stocked up on anything and everything that could get their hands on, books included. The likelihood of the power going out due to the storm was higher than you would expect, especially if you didn't live on the wealthy side of the island. It usually would take a few days for power to be restored, usually after officials ferried supplies and electrical workers to make the repairs. Oh yeah. If you're on an island, you'll have to export people in too. Without internet or electricity, it was incredibly easy to go stir crazy, add freezing temperatures to the mix, and you had yourself a miserable time. Now that you thought about it, Camilla was probably having a horrible time dealing with everyone stocking up for the impending storm. Oh yeah. Yeah, same here. The last thing I want to do is spend the weekend freezing half to death without power, you said with a sigh as you shivered at the thought. Tell me about it. I'm already freezing with the power on. I'd hate to think about what it'd be like without, she said, wrapping the blanket tighter around her thin frame. Are you going to be able to survive, Rita? You glanced at her once more. Seriously, are you okay, Rita? Do you need me to grab you anything? She blinked, caught off guard by your sincere question. Oh, you get to bed right now. You get some water, you get some soup, you get in the bed, you put on Centaur World, and you rest. My mom instincts are kicking in. Yeah, I'll be okay. I've just been pushing myself too much recently, and it caught up with me. Thank you for caring, though. I appreciate it. She coughed once more, covering her mouth with the edge of the blanket. You get into bed, Rita! Are you sure? You can rely on me, you know. I want to be there for you, Rita. To bed, you get to bed right now. Her eyes widened for a moment, before they softened considerably. She was incredibly touched by your kind words, so much so that you swear you saw her eyes watering before she wiped at her face with the blanket. Oh. I wonder if there's a Rita route. I'm usually more prone to the male characters, but gosh darn it, Rita deserves some love too. I'm sorry. It's been a while since I've really let anyone in. If anything comes up, I'll reach out, I swear, she promised with an affectionately tired smile on her lips as she looked over towards you. You returned the smile. I hope you know I'll hold you to that. You chuckled as you closed the locker behind you. Thanks, Espoir. Seriously. Is there anything else you need from me before I head upstairs and get in bed? She questioned as she started walking towards one of the doors in the back room she usually kept locked throughout the workday. No, I think I should be good. All right, if anything comes up, just text me and I'll deal with it later, she said with a nod, before finally turning and heading back upstairs where her apartment resided. It must have been nice, basically having a 20-second commute to work, if that. That would be pretty cool. Or would it be maddening? Slipping through the main door that connected the back room to the main store, you made your way towards the front. Just as Rita said, everything was neatly placed on the shelf behind the counter, and the list of customers was on the counter. It seemed as though she had also unlocked the front door and flipped the open sign around. Now all that was left to do was wait for the customers to arrive and pick up their orders. Fortunately, you didn't have to wait long for the first customer to arrive, a sweet elderly woman who had reserved a surprisingly rare book about birding. You both exchanged pleasantries as you rang her up, and she commented on the impending hurricane and how worried she was about any potential damage it would cause her home. A fear, as you would come to find out, that all of today's customers shared. Yeah, if you live by an island, storms are kind of a big problem. You were polite, of course, but by the time noon rolled around, you were mentally over-talking about the darn storm. Thankfully, the final customer walked through the doors a little after 1 and didn't stick around for long before heading on their merry way. Despite checking the list Rita had written, every single name was crossed off, and the shelf behind you was completely empty, a sign that your duties for the day had come to an end. What do you do? I have a feeling that if we hang out until 2, we might see our buddy again, so let's hang out until 2, just in case. Ah, that's right. You told Garrett that you'd be here until 2 p.m. The thought of leaving early and possibly missing him made you feel guiltier than you would have liked to admit. Even though you didn't specifically make plans with him to meet you here, you couldn't bring yourself to just up and leave. Deciding to hang out until the original time you mentioned, you pulled out your phone and started scrolling in an attempt to keep yourself busy. Exactly 10 minutes before 2 p.m., the sound of the door chimes filled the small bookstore, and there he stood before you. Hey, buddy.
Long time no see, Espoir,
he said with a bright and confident smile as he made his way over towards the counter, his gray-blue eyes glancing at the to-do list on the counter and saw that everything had been marked off.
I see I came at the perfect time. Looks like your work is done for the day, he commented with a rather pleased expression.
Actually, you had been done for well over half an hour, but you didn't want to burst his bubble, so you omitted that fact for now. I thought you weren't going to show up after all. Luckily for you, I already have a few book recommendations in mind, you said with a smile, commenting on the supposed reason he came in at all. To be honest, you had already decided on the book recommendations on the walk to work. If he loved the latest Morgan Brattle book, it was obvious he would love the rest of the series. He's in it now. I'm gonna put you deep into the Brattle hole. The Brattle sphere. Garrett's eyes widened in surprise before an amused smirk appeared on his lips.
Is that so? I'm all ears.
He practically purred, beyond pleased that you had not only remembered your conversation with him earlier, but you had been thinking of him all day long. Sir, please. So, by the time 2 p.m. rolled around, you had somehow managed to convince him to buy Morgan Brattle's entire collection. Yes, you were so excited. This had to have been one of the fastest and biggest sales you've not only made for Morgan, but Rita as well. Just Rita's gonna come down. Where'd all this money come from? You'd have to message her later, and leave a comment on Morgan's page once you got the chance. This was too exciting not to share. After all, it's not every day that someone drops nearly $250 on a hardcover collection. Thank God he was loaded, otherwise there was no way you could have pulled it off. You were so wrapped up in the successful sale, you completely missed the look of complete and utter devotion that Garrett was giving you as you packed a heavy-duty bag for him to carry it all in. Sir, please. Once he was fully checked out and had the bag in hand, Garrett spoke up once more.
Thanks again for introducing me to Brattle's works. I couldn't help but buy them all when I heard how passionately you felt about them.
Aw, of course. I admit I was a little skeptical when you said you read it all in one night, but hearing you talk about it completely changed my mind. You chuckled as you shut off the iPad register and started gathering your things.
Ouch, I'm hurt.
He chuckled, playfully putting his free hand over his heart before continuing.
Oh, I meant to ask, have you eaten yet?
Are you also going to take me to dinner? Mr. Belmont, please. What will the people think? You paused, a little surprised by the question. Oh, not really. Why? You questioned hesitantly.
Well, in honor of our newfound friendship forged by Morgan Brattle's brilliance, I'd love to treat you to lunch,
he said with a charming smile.
I know a few places nearby that would be a perfect spot to discuss the novel's finer plot points and twists,
he added with a devilish little smile. Silly old me would walk directly into all that. Trap or not, I'm like, yeah, sure. Technically still a complete stranger. If you were being honest, his offer was pretty tempting to say the least. Let's do it! Let's do it! Throw caution out the window.
Wonderful. I know just the place,
he said with a brilliant smile as he took a step back, giving you some space.
I'll wait for you out front. Take your time closing up.
And like that, he exited the shop with a pep in his step. Aw, hey, a free meal was a free meal. Besides, you wanted to pick his brain about the book a bit more anyway. It took you just under 5 minutes to close up shop and grab your things before meeting him outside. Don't forget to tell Rita about your massive sale. As you approached him, you couldn't help but admire the sight before you. The more you looked at him, the more you realized just how conventionally attractive he was. His clothes were clean and wrinkle-free, his skin clear, almost as if he had airbrushed himself right out of a magazine, and his hair looked so soft and shiny. Yeah, well, what does he look like in the morning? How could one man be so devastatingly beautiful? Vampire! Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. He's a Belmont. He wouldn't be a vampire. Or would he?
Ah, there you are,
he said, his dimples in full view as he looked down at you affectionately before putting his phone into his pocket.
Let's head over. It's only a few blocks away. I hope you don't mind walking there.
You shook your head as you followed after him. Well, technically, you were right beside him, but just a step or two behind. Wanting to fill the silence that fell between you two, you racked your brain for any topic you could think of. That was until a flash of crimson red came to your mind's eye. You know, I've never seen red hydrangeas before moving to St. Anne's, you commented with a smile. Are they native to the island? Garrett chuckled and shook his head, making sure to match his pace to yours so you both could walk and talk comfortably.
No, actually that's a common misconception that most mainlanders make. Hydrangeas are unique in the sense that they actually get their colors from the soil. Generally speaking, acidic soil creates blue or lavender blooms, while alkaline soil creates pinks and reds. Of course, there are a variety of purples in between, but once you have a bit of experience growing them, you can easily manipulate the blooms to be whatever color you prefer.
That's an awfully deep shade of red.
The soil in St. Anne's just happens to run a bit more alkaline than most, he explained casually as he kept his gaze on you.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. How long have you been into gardening? You questioned, genuinely curious about his hobby. As shallow as it might have sounded, you would have never pegged this rich playboy as a devout and talented gardener. His smile fell for a moment before it swiftly returned, notably a bit more forced than it was before.
My mother introduced me to it back when I was a child, and it's stuck with me ever since.
Oh, that's sweet. Do you still garden with her? You questioned, without thinking.
She passed away, so unfortunately not, he answered, a strained smile on his lips as his eyes met yours.
Fluff. Great job bringing down the mood, Espoir. Hopefully you didn't completely spoil everything. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. You genuinely apologize, not knowing how else to react in this situation. Garrett couldn't help but laugh as he shook his head and ruffled your hair affectionately.
Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal, really. It's been over a decade since she died. The world has moved on, and so have I.
A decade ago? He must have been in his late teens or early 20s. That might be true, but she was still your mom. I'm sorry you lost her at such a young age. His expression softened upon hearing your words.
You're incredibly kind. You know that?
Huh? Where did that come from? Of course, you're relieved he wasn't upset with you, but it's not like you did anything to warrant that compliment. You were just stating facts. However, before you had a chance to question him about it, you both arrived at the restaurant, and the moment passed. Lunch went surprisingly well. The restaurant was beautifully decorated, and the food was pricier than you were used to, but oh so delicious. You'd even go so far as to say it rivaled Camilla's cooking. Conversation went smoothly, and you found yourself really enjoying discussing Morgan Brattle's writing, and even found yourself defending a few of the twists and plot points that Garrett criticized. Thankfully, Garrett seemed pleased as how his counterpoints were proven wrong time and time again, or at least you'd like to think so. It was a lot of fun. So much so that you both lost track of time, and by the time you exited the restaurant, the sun had nearly finished setting.
I'm sorry I ended up keeping you out so late.
No, don't. Smile of your own, or at least it felt that way given the blush that creeped onto Garrett's otherwise pristine cheeks.
I had a wonderful time too. If it's not too forward of me, would you like to see each other again tomorrow? Perhaps on a date?
He seemed surprisingly bashful given his appearance and otherwise confident demeanor. Oh wow, that was forward. When was the last time you were asked out on a date? A darker shade of red appeared in your mind's eye, and you immediately shoved that repulsive memory away. No, absolutely not. We are not going to think about them when an otherwise perfect man stood before you asking you on a date. Propelled by the desire to overwrite your past relationship with a new one, and not having anything better to do tomorrow, you decided to go for it. Besides, you had a wonderful time today. Why wouldn't you want to continue it on your day off tomorrow? I'd love to. It was as if you told him he had won the lottery, or several of them. His face lit up, and it took everything in his power not to exclaim to the heavens, "Aw!"
Wonderful! Before I forget, let's exchange numbers so we can communicate about tomorrow.
He beamed at you, clearly ecstatic at the thought of spending the better part of tomorrow with you. Of course! Oh, and I'll go ahead and just text you my address so you have it for tomorrow. you say with a smile, as you exchange numbers, sending each other a quick text to make sure you both saved the correct numbers. Once that was sorted, you shoved your phone back into your pocket. "All right, I'm going to head home. See you tomorrow, Garrett," you say with a smile as you give him a small wave as you start walking off.
Get home safely, Espoir. I'll see you tomorrow,
he said with a bright smile as you split ways after reaching his house. He had offered to walk you the rest of the way home, but you insisted that you would be all right, and it would be silly for him to double back after dropping you off. By the time you got home, you were surprisingly exhausted and completely stuffed from everything you had eaten at the restaurant. Deciding to have a low-key evening in bed, you retreated to your room, changed into your PJs, and crawled into bed. Where is my roommate? After checking all of your social media, you finally remembered the sale you made and rushed to Morgan Brattle's main page. You recounted the story, making sure to keep the specifics vague to protect everyone's privacy, and hit enter. Almost immediately, you received a heart from the owner of the account itself. Suspecting it to be a PR firm or manager, you tried not to let it get to your head, but you couldn't help but wonder, what if it was, in fact, your favorite author liking your post? You spent the rest of the night scrolling social media before finally falling asleep, pleased and excited at what tomorrow would have in store for you. Wait. It wasn't until the middle of the night that your phone started buzzing again, and again, and again, revealing you got a new anonymous follower on all of your social media accounts. Golly. However, given the fact that you were fast asleep, you wouldn't see any of them until the morning. End of day 2. Thank you so much for checking out my first visual novel. It's pretty good for your first visual novel so far. That was nice. I like that. No shenanigans afoot just yet.